Tennessee, I am warning you now. Be very, very careful against Mississippi State.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Showdowns in the Big 12. Indiana's outlook post-Illinois, quite good. But how good exactly? We'll discuss all that on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like the players of your favorite team, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Eric Kane, Locked On Vols, is here to discuss Tennessee and Mississippi State. Speaking of the unexpected, Eric, some people said before the year that Mississippi State was going to beat somebody that nobody thinks they should. Now, that showed up in a game against Arizona State that I didn't think they'd be that ready for it, but lo and behold, they were. Mississippi State should be ranked. They're 4-0 for the first time in over a decade. Blake Shapen is playing some good football right now. Tennessee is on the road. Starkville is going to be absolutely on fire as they were for Arizona State. I just want to at least point out that Tennessee needs to be very, very careful in this spot.
Listen, if you're going to point at yourself talking about Mississippi State winning a game they should, you got to point at yourself saying, like, preseason you said Tennessee was going to be awful, Syracuse is going to beat Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Like, keep pointing at yourself.
Whoa. There was never an expression of Syracuse beating Tennessee. There was an expression of this is an interesting game, and then as it got closer.
Let me rephrase. Every time I come on here, I'm looking over here at the panel. Tennessee must be careful. You know, Syracuse. You know, there's airplanes. Syracuse fans travel too. It's like, I mean, come on, Spencer. Let's get a grip here. Nah, I think Mississippi State. I think it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a Hornets' nest. Great environment. Obviously, a much better football team. And I mean, I'm with you. Tennessee obviously has to be careful. Because you can't just sleepwalk through this game. Tennessee did that against Arkansas last year and lost. Tennessee, it's hard to win in this league. Heupel has a losing record on the road while at Tennessee, although half of those losses are to Alabama and Georgia and Florida. But you look around the conference, and it's kind of the same way. It's just really, really hard to win on the road in this league. So Tennessee has to be careful for sure. I still just think, for as much improvement as I've seen from Mississippi State, I still don't exactly know who they are. Big win over Arizona State. How good is Arizona State? They want to run the football. I think obviously having Blake Shapen has made them significantly better than not having Blake Shapen a season ago. I still don't know how good they are. They're improved. I don't know how good they are. I still think that Tennessee, right now is a touchdown and a half-point favorite or whatever, and I think Tennessee covers that. It's not. I wouldn't say this is going to be an easy game because I don't think it'll be easy. I just think Tennessee has too many horses in this contest.
I hear you, because I have been impressed with Tennessee to begin the season. And between these two teams, Tennessee is the one that has outperformed my expectations so far compared to what I thought of them coming into this year. I thought Tennessee would be a pullback team with Joey Aguilar in there, and I thought Mississippi State was on the rise. And before the year, I had this tagged for my everydayers out there as keep an eye on an upset potential here. I think the upset potential is very real, especially with what we saw against Tennessee in the game against Georgia and how Gunnar Stockton carved them up. But I want to pose this question to you. Do you feel like the Vols secondary is going to be significantly improved from that game? Because Gunnar Stockton, who I think is good, and I think better than Blake Shapen. I don't know that it's a Grand Canyon size gap, but I think he's better by a solid amount, but I like Jeff Lebby. Do you feel like the Vols secondary since that game has taken steps to get better?
No. And I think part of it is, you have an All-American first-round cornerback that's still not played. You have another starting cornerback that's out for the year. And Colton Hood, who I think is phenomenal. And Colton Hood's done a fine job. Whenever Tennessee's getting picked on, it's not been picked on Colton Hood, the transfer from Colorado, who CBS Sports mocked as a first-rounder today. How about that? It's a true freshman, Ty Redmond, and he's going to be really good. He's made some plays, but he is a true freshman. They're picking on him. They're targeting him. I don't think Tennessee's safeties have been great to begin the year, and I don't think there was a lot of expectation for them to be stellar. The star position's not been great so far. So, yeah, I think this team's going to – I mean, you look at UAB and you had a D1 or a FBS level quarterback in Jalen Kitna that threw it all over the yard because they couldn't – they ran for 23 yards. I mean, it was completely one-dimensional. So the stats look different. And Tennessee's been force-feeding a lot of young guys, a lot of freshmen in the secondary trying to find more depth. They've sacrificed some stats in games like that. But just right now where they are injury-wise, I think they're going to give up some. But I also think that Tennessee is going to sack the quarterback. I think Tennessee's going to get picks. I think Tennessee's going to force turnovers and kind of that bend, not break, give up, but also take away type style where still effective, just not elite-wise, stat-wise like you saw in 2024. So do I think Blake Shapen can do what Gunnar Stockton did? No, I don't. I do think Blake Shapen's talented quarterback, and Tennessee's got to be ready for him, but I don't think he's going to throw it all over the place like Stockton did for nearly 380 yards or whatever it was.
67%, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's got Brennan Thompson and Anthony Evans on the outside. Solid weapons. Solid weapons. Does solid beat Tennessee? I don't know, because I'm so inclined to take the upset. And by the time we finish recording this segment, I might do it. My hesitation, Eric, to do that comes in the form of what I've seen from Joey Aguilar in the passing game. Save for a couple of mistakes and, learning SEC football and a new playbook and the timeline and whatnot, that frankly is to be expected at this point. He's way further ahead of where I thought he would be at this point. I thought that in a Heupel offense, yeah, you get there at some point, but that he was doing that to Georgia early on. That first quarter against Georgia, Eric, I know the result was horrible for Vols fans out there, but that first quarter was among the most impressive first quarters of offense, I think, in any game in college football this year. It was John Williams leading the orchestra out there live for a live concert for Star Wars, okay? Like, it was seamless. It was absolutely perfect. And so he made a couple mistakes, but he's where my confidence grows in the Vols' ability to avoid the Arkansas outcome from last year.
It's funny, too. You look at his stats, and he's got 3 interceptions on the year. One interception was when a receiver fell down, threw it right to the guy because the receiver fell down. Another one was last week whenever the wide receiver was getting absolutely interfered with. They didn't call it, and he stuck his hand in there, and the ball went up in the air for, I kid you not, probably 6 seconds. It was just hanging up there, for anybody to go get. And then his first interception, he threw into double coverage down the sideline. It was kind of like a punt. So, yeah, he's got 3 picks, 2 of which you could very easily say, wasn't even his fault. But my point is he's going to throw more picks. He's been phenomenal, though. Look at Pro Football Focus breakdown. Passes 20 or more yards down the field. He's completing 58.8%, 10 of 17. Of his 10 completions on the deep ball, it just makes you chuckle, right? Because Nico and Joe Milton just could not get the down the field passing going in the last couple of years, right? And then of the 10 completions of 20 yards or more, 8 have gone for 6. 8 have gone for touchdowns. I mean, the deep ball, just throwing it up there.
That Brazel guy.
Yeah, lead the nation in touchdowns,
Player.
right? Just giving your receiver a chance to go make a play, and that's what he's done. He's cool, calm. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, and I think that's where the 24-year-old, hey, I played a ton of football, maybe not at this level, but I played a ton of football in my life kind of gets you, and it's been really nice. And this will be a new challenge for him, just like Gunnar Stockton coming to Neyland Stadium. Joey Aguilar's never faced like a true road environment in the SEC like this, and that place is going to be rocking. Cowbells will be going crazy. So I'm excited to see how he handles it, but I'm with you, man. I mean, what I saw from Joey Aguilar against Georgia, and I think Georgia's the best team in the conference. I think it's one of the best teams in the country. I think that Georgia defense is going to be just fine. Tennessee out-muscling Georgia defensive backs, and him doing that against a Kirby Smart defense. Yeah, I mean, I've got confidence in Joey Aguilar to keep Tennessee in a lot of football games this year.
Joey Aguilar and Chris Brazel have won me over in a lot of ways. I'll take Tennessee to win. I don't think this is Mississippi State, for whatever it's worth. And look, my best bets have been crap so far this year, but they're one of my best bets this week. Plus 7.5. I'll take, with a lot of points being scored, just barely on the under. I actually think that Heupel will drain a little bit more clock on the road, try to take the air out of this game, not let the Cowbells really get rolling there. So I'll go 34-28 Tennessee wins, but Mississippi State hangs around. I think this is going to be I am so excited to watch this football game, Eric.
I think low key, it's one of the better football games in the country this year, and like
it should be a ranked matchup. It should. Mississippi. There is no excuse from the AP voters to not have Mississippi State ranked. They beat a preseason top 12 team. They're 4-0, and you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
who cares?
They are a greatly improved football team. I'm excited to see kind of how they go throughout the season. I still don't know how good they are though, because again, I don't know how good Arizona State is. I just don't. I mean, Levitt's taking a step back. Obviously, they got one of the best wide receivers in the country. But I'm excited to see this game because I think that it's never easy on the road. I think Mississippi State's a lot improved, and this will be the first environment that Joey Aguilar's played in. But I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think Tennessee's got too many horses. I think Tennessee's going to run the football. And I think the defenses, I know we got to go, the defenses on both sides. Remember, Levy coached with Heupel at UCF, right? It was his OC, his quarterback's coach. They run a very similar brand of offense, both these teams. I think the defenses are going to be benefiting from that because they see it every day in practice, right? So interesting storylines galore, one of the better games in college football. Give me the Vols 31-20. I like the under, but I like Tennessee to cover that spread.
Eric Kane, Locked On Vols, might have talked some sense into that segment. If Mississippi State wins this game, I might ban you from the program.
Come on.
I'm kidding. I would never do that. Speaking of the Big 12, they've got big showdowns this week. Speaking of Arizona State, they've got to have it this week, and I think they will. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down and start with Fernando Mendoza. Did you know he's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy now? Because with John Mateer's injury, there's an opportunity, and he just threw for 5 touchdowns in a dominant win over Illinois, who have a big game against USC this weekend. Plus, speaking of John Mateer, he delivered in the win over the Auburn Tigers last week for the Oklahoma Sooners. Just like those guys delivered for their teams, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every time you order, stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Check out DoorDash today. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And guess what? Do you want college football? They've got college football. All the games I'm talking about here, my best bets, which haven't been very best so far this year, every week come courtesy of FanDuel because they've got all the information you need. You got point spreads, money line, point totals in every game, prop bets, and much, much more. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Showdowns in the Big 12 this week. We start with Christian Rauh of Locked On Kansas State to discuss Arizona State and TCU. Now, here's my thinking in this game, Christian. I could have a ready-made soundbite to pick TCU to win. Josh Hoover is the best quarterback in this conference. I love Sawyer Robertson. By a fraction, I'm taking Josh Hoover. I'm a big Josh Hoover fan.
Yeah.
They have held TCU opponents to running the ball to the tune of 107 yards per game. I don't think Arizona State can just get here and bleed out the clock. Arizona State's pass defense, okay. It's been okay. 238 yards per game allowed this year. I come back to Arizona State because of what they did last week at Baylor. I think this is an incredibly confident group that on a short week is coming home. This is a slight favorite, according to our friends at FanDuel. Arizona State is a slight favorite over TCU. I think Arizona State wins the game, but man, this is about as coin flip as it gets in the Big 12 between two teams who are probably playing for their right to go to the Big 12 championship game.
I agree completely. Everything you just said, I agree completely. Josh Hoover is the most underrated quarterback in the Big 12, full stop. But what we have seen over the last couple weeks,
most underrated quarterback in the country.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. I know we're talking Big 12 here, but I know it's a national college podcast. I agree with you 100%. You know, Sam Leavitt, what he has done in the last 2 weeks, it's like it's like the Texas State game was a wake-up game after what happened in week 1 for Arizona State. I mean, he was doing things with the football that was absolutely insane. And then last week against Baylor was just nuts. They're back on the map, and they should be. I am super excited to watch this game here. I want to see how TCU's wide receivers are against this secondary. That's my biggest thing to pay attention to in this one with Josh Hoover, his wide receivers. The loss of Xavier Alford for Arizona State, how important is that for Arizona State's defense? But I'm with you. I think it's a coin flip, and I do also lean Arizona State by like a field goal.
Yeah, and the other reason that I'm confident here and why I picked Arizona State last week to beat Baylor is I trust their defense a little bit more, well, a lot more than Baylor's, and I'll say a little bit more than TCU's, because TCU's has clearly taken a step forward, and they've played some good football. I think stylistically, though, you watch Baylor and you watch TCU, a lot of similarities. They're going to throw the ball a lot because they have elite quarterbacks. And the Bears last week at home put up 24 points. So you give me short week on the road. I think even though I like Hoover a little more than Sawyer Robertson, not by a ton though, I think Sawyer Robertson's really, really good. I think you can hold TCU well under 30 points, probably in the 24 to 27 range. And so then it comes down to, do I think that Arizona State's offense coming back to Tempe, which should be absolutely on fire for a big game in this spot, do I think they get to the upper 20s? I do. I think Arizona State wins this game 28-23.
I'm a little higher than that. I think when I look at the cover and I look at the spread, I don't want to touch either of those, but I love the over in this one at 54. That's what I personally love. I have it at 35-31. Arizona State, still really close in this one, but I'm with you. I think it's definitely going to be a quarterback battle. When you look at, mentioned Josh Hoover, a legit NFL talent, underrated quarterback in the country, as you mentioned. I mean, top 10 in passing explosiveness so far this season, but on the flip side, as I mentioned, what Sam Leavitt has done so far this season, and it really started with those fantastic circus-like plays in Texas State a few weeks ago, he's just more dangerous, and he's actually more dangerous under pressure, something that TCU does quite a lot.
Yeah, and I do wonder if he can find an option that isn't Jordan Tyson. Now, he's a tough guy to stop, 357 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns so far this year. Sam Leavitt has only thrown one other touchdown this year, so 5 have been to Jordan Tyson. You know that's where the ball is going to go, but I like Arizona State staff and the way that they have performed over the last couple of weeks. I don't think that Mississippi State loss was a blemish on the ASU resume, because they should be a top 25 team. I think that Mississippi State, as I talked about earlier on today's show, Christian, before you arrived, Mississippi State should be ranked. They beat a preseason top 12 team at home. It was a close game. And we think about this. We're literally one play away from Arizona State maybe being a top 10 team, being no lower than 11th in the country, because not only would they have beaten Mississippi State and have a 0 in the loss column, but with the win at Baylor, I think they would have backed up a lot of the hopes that people had for them coming into this season. Now, I didn't have them making the Big 12 championship game when this season kicked off. I thought that would be Texas Tech and your Kansas State Wildcats. Yeah, that's... Nope, not gonna happen.
We're talking good games this week.
We're talking good games and good teams and whatnot. So I just think that Arizona State has been written off. And the other thing I couldn't get out of my head, Arizona State unranked, TCU ranked, Arizona State favored. That feels like a Vegas trap waiting to happen if you take TCU.
I don't know if it's the home game atmosphere, the Friday night hostile environment that makes them favorite. I'm not really sure. But what I do know is this feels like a mini playoff in itself, a mini elimination game already at the end of September. You lose this game, you're probably out of the contention for Arlington.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because you lose a head-to-head with another team that's got a chance to go. It's not just getting upset and having a loss. I think that's a double whammy for why you wouldn't go. Speaking of those games, though, and a really interesting one that I don't think a lot of people or enough people are talking about in the country, Iowa State hosting Arizona this week. Really interesting measuring stick spot for the Wildcats here, who I identified after their first 2 games of the year against inferior opponents. Hey, this might be kind of a solid team. And is beating Kansas State indicative of a lot? Maybe not, but it's indicative of something. They now have an opportunity to ascend and be this year's Arizona State team. They go on the road to Ames to play Iowa State, and we know the Cyclones are a good team. They haven't always looked perfect this year. Struggled against, I don't even remember the name of the team. I looked up one day and went, wait a minute, why is that game even remotely close? But I think Iowa State is a good team. I had them preseason number 4 in my Big 12 power rankings coming into this year. Just one spot behind Kansas State. Sorry to keep reminding you of that. But I think there's a real opportunity for Arizona to prove that not only are they not a bottom dweller in the Big 12, which I think they have shown, but that they are more than just a middle tier team and could make a push to go to the Big 12 championship game, which sounds crazy when last year a lot of people were ready to move on from Brent Brennan. But guess what? Last year, Arizona State had a preseason win total of 4.5 off a 3-9 season, and they won the conference.
Yeah, Spencer, you've ate your Wheaties today because I'm definitely in agreement with you on a lot of the things you've said so far. I don't know. Maybe we have to check, or maybe we got to buy a lottery ticket together because there's a lot of crazy things going on right now. Maybe it's because the Mariners are clinched the playoffs. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But either way, this is what it should have been.
We worked it into the segment, everybody. The Mariners are going to the playoffs. Continue. We
made it happen. Noah Fifita should have his first real audition of the season, and without Tedatory McMillan for the first year, should have been last week against Kansas State. That should have been his first real audition. Obviously, that didn't happen. This is now going to be his first true test of the season without his top wide receiver from last year to finally say, can he be that quarterback that we all thought he could be, and see if that growth starts moving forward. I don't know if that happens. We'll see. I'm really interested. I've had the luxury, if you want to call it that, to be able to see both of these teams as an opponent already as the Kansas State host, watching Arizona, watching Iowa State. When I go back and look at both these games, of course, there was a monsoon in Dublin. That's one thing to worry about. And then the Arizona game just last Friday. I was more impressed with Iowa State's game and with their resume. And you talked about a team they thought they were struggling with. That was Arkansas State, just to put that on the record. Either way.
The Red Wolves.
The Red Wolves. Yeah, Sunbelt. Yes. There we go. I still think Iowa State is the team to beat here. But when you look at what Brent Brennan did so far this season, and arguably last week's game, even though it's a struggling Kansas State team, is the best win for Brent Brennan since he's been the head coach at Arizona. If he can continue that momentum, that's huge. I just don't think it happens again. Maybe kind of that backyard brawl kind of feel, what we got with West Virginia and Pitt that week right after. A little bit of a real super high against Kansas State, then you fall short against Iowa State. That's where I'm leaning right here. It's all about, to me, though, is the Arizona defense, what they can do. Arizona's defense has stepped up big time. Last season, 122nd in total defense. They're in the top 25 in that categories now. Their pressures are amazing. They blitz the second most in the Power 4. However, the pressures, when they do blitz, are struggling. It's down to 103rd nationally. If Rocco Beck can make sure he stops and doesn't have any issues with the blitz, because when he has standard rush, according to PFF, he's the 13th best quarterback in the country. But when blitzes happen, it goes all the way down to 71. If he can find a way to control the blitz, that offensive line and Rocco Beck, Iowa State take care of them easily.
I think Brent Brennan has had a really important start for himself coming into this season. There were legitimately calls amongst some segments of the Arizona fan base for him to be gone last year because of how good Arizona was in 2023 and then how bad they were a season ago with Noah Fifita still there. And he had to have this start to the season. This would be a seat cooler of gigantic proportions, I think, for Brent Brennan. I don't think he gets it in this spot as much as I do like what I've seen from Arizona. I think they can go well past just making a bowl game so far this year. But when you're going on the road to Ames, you know it's going to be difficult. Yes, you have to pressure Rocco Beck. I struggle to pick against the Cyclones at home in this spot. So I'll take Iowa State to win a good football game that is competitive, 31-23. I think Iowa State has enough in the tank to get it done. Look for those tight ends in the passing game. Iowa State uses them as well as anybody in all of college football, and they can be a matchup nightmare.
Yeah, those tight ends versus Arizona safeties like Genesis Smith will certainly be a fun matchup to watch. Genesis Smith was all over the field against Kansas State. He's a very fun football player just to watch football in general. He's fun. Kick back on the couch, watch that matchup. If Arizona can score 24 or more points, I think that's a win in itself for Brent Brennan and the rest of the crew, whether it's a win or a loss. I know we don't do, fun wins like that or, participation wins on this podcast. But in this case, I think 24 points is a good one thing to keep in mind, though, Spencer. I know we're heading out here soon. The special teams race is going to be interesting because Iowa State's down to their third kicker, a freshman walk-on kicker in, I believe his name is Chase Smith.
Did they pick him up in the Pat McAfee kicking contest?
It might be. It might be. But he's only had some kickoffs this year. A walk-on freshman, Chase Smith. Interesting stuff. I still think that Iowa State takes it. I'm close on your score. I'm going to go 31-17.
Christian Rauh, Locked On Kansas State. Big games in the Big 12 this week. Look at that Mariners helmet. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the good stuff right there. You know what else is good? Indiana. Indiana's a good football team. How good exactly? First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is the Missouri offense. They didn't have one moment, they had several moments. Ahmad Hardy and Bo Prabula are playing really good football right now. And you know what? I've been down on Missouri for the last couple of seasons, and I think justifiably so. Not so far. Not so far this season. You can't be down on Missouri. You watch them, they pass the eye test, their resume. They just beat South Carolina comfortably, and the Missouri Tigers are indeed a college football playoff contender. They have been moving their program forward each week with their strong performances. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
Let's talk some more Indiana. How legit are the Hoosiers, Spencer, in your mind, after what they did against Illinois, plus the schedule they still have remaining? How legit is Indiana to make it back to the college football playoff at this point in the season?
That feels like the floor. I mean, not being hyperbolic here. That feels like bare minimum good outcome for Indiana this season is you get into the playoff. And look, maybe one day we'll look back and go, oh, Illinois was 6-6. Boy, they regressed. They weren't actually that good. Even if they do that, which I don't think they're going to do, by the way. I think worst case for Illinois is 7 wins, but I think they're still probably an 8-9 win team this year. And let's say they go back to 7 wins, beating a team 63-10. That doesn't happen a lot in conference play.
Yeah.
It simply does not. Can you imagine if, let me pick one example, the Alabama Crimson Tide blew out a 7-5 Oklahoma team this year? Can you imagine? Oh, they're back. They're so unbelievably back.
Kalen DeBoer is Saban 2.0, baby.
Yep, he's got it. Yeah. He's got it. Just needed a little time.
Is the man.
Look at how badly they beat that team. I actually don't even remember if they square off this year. I'm just making a point. This is a really impressive performance by Indiana, and they have other games this year that, as Indiana fans well know, are going to, be even more challenging than this. You talk about on the road against Oregon in a couple of weeks. We'll get together and talk about that when the time is right. You talk about reason. For no reason in particular, because I'm a college football fan, obviously. That's right. You talk about that game. They've got Penn State on the schedule as well.
In Happy Valley.
Yeah, in Happy Valley. Like that, those are a couple of really tough games, but coming into this year, you and I both felt, those are probably going to be losses. Now you look at them and go, kind of feels like they could get one of them. Let's see how Oregon and Penn State look against each other this weekend before we make a determination about how tough those games will truly be for Indiana based on in-season results. But man, it's hard to not be impressed by what Indiana did. And 10-2 in the Big Ten or SEC gets you into the playoff, right? 10-2 feels like the floor for Indiana going forward. I can't see how they would do anything worse than lose to Oregon and Penn State and beat everybody else. I really can't. If they play like that week in and week out or anywhere close to it, the worst they will be is 10-2.
Outside the obvious of Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, give me a team in the Big Ten. I know it's early. There's a lot of games to be played. Give me a team, not name those 3, and of course not Indiana either. A team that people need to have their eyes on in the Big Ten as a dark horse for the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm going to go with USC. They play Illinois on the road this week. Could knock the Illini out of the top 25. According to our friends at FanDuel, they're 6.5-point favorites in that spot, and I might have more on that game later in this week on the show, but I think that for USC right now, they are playing really good ball on the offensive side, which oddly enough, with a Lincoln Riley coach team, was the question. Because last year the offense was not where it has been under previous years when he's the coordinator, and that's what he does as the head coach, of course. But the defense last year took a huge step forward with Danton Lynn, and he's there again. He's got some returners, and Kamari Ramsey is a darn good football player on that side of the ball, one of several guys, and they have played really good football. Now, this is their first real test this week. They played fine on the road against Purdue a little while ago, and they played well enough against Michigan State, but they are playing well. I won't say they're making the sort of statement like what Indiana did against Illinois on Saturday. But if you look at what USC has done, I'd say, yeah, they're playing some good football. I think Michigan State is a pretty good team. I don't think they're great, but I think Michigan State's a bowl team this year. And
You're
USC,
going to get Matt Sheehan all fired up now.
Yeah, I know. But
all fired up.
I think they're a bowl team this year, and USC was comfortably better than them throughout the course of the game, and the Spartans backdoored their way into a cover there. So on an 18.5 or 17.5 point spread, I think. So I think for USC, the question is, does Jaden Mayava sustain this going forward? He's off to a blistering pace.
Yeah.
I don't think he's played a real defense this week. I think Illinois, in spite of what we just saw against Indiana, will be the best defensive test that he's had to go up against so far this year. And I think that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. But yeah, USC, I would have had Nebraska if they'd knocked off Michigan, but they weren't able to get that done. So I won't put them quite in that conversation. And by the way, I'm not going to put Michigan in that conversation either. I think both of those teams are good. By the way, Michigan's better. They outplayed them on the road last week pretty considerably. But I think that Michigan is good. I just think they are a year away. And Bryce Underwood is exciting. I'm glad they started him. I called for that all offseason. I do think that there were always going to be some growing pains, and there still are. I don't think he's as lethal of a passer on third down as J.J. McCarthy was a couple of years ago when Michigan won the Big Ten. So I think he still, needs to progress as a passer, and they frankly need to be better on the perimeter. They just don't have a high-level weapon out there. You took away Colston Loveland, and yeah, their tight ends are fine, but man, on the perimeter, they just don't have anybody to really make it a consistent threat for another team. And so when you don't have that component, I think Michigan just gets a lot less dangerous, because if you go up against a team like Ohio State or Oregon or Penn State that can match you toe-to-toe in the trenches and limit your running game, suddenly your offense is putting the onus on the defense, because they're going to be capped at 17 to 20 points. Well, you better be able to hold a bunch of NFL talent all over the Big Ten to 24 points or fewer if you want to hang around in that game. So I think Michigan's still a year away. I think Nebraska might be still a year away. Keep an eye on Washington. Just keep an eye. They play Ohio State this week, and
that's a nasty spread. I'm telling you.
It's Ohio State minus 8.5. It is at Husky Stadium. They're looking for a signature win under Jed Fish. I'd be very careful if I were Ohio State going into that game, thinking that we're just going to roll out here. And teams that have gone to the West Coast in the regular season have not had a great track record so far in this now year 2 of the Big Ten. And so I'd be watching for that. Damon Williams is a real player at quarterback, fast, twitchy, really accurate as a passer. He is incredibly dangerous, but the question for Washington is, will the rest of the team be up to that level? Because Damon Williams' ceiling is a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten this year. I'm not talking the future. I'm saying this year.
Okay.
But can the rest of the team be on Ohio State's level? We'll see this weekend, but that's another team that if you say, well, who do you keep an eye on around the Big Ten? I'd go to those two right there, USC and Washington, and I think Michigan, Nebraska just missing out.
Well, there's a lot of big games this weekend and several more the following weeks as well. We're going to learn a ton about those teams, the teams at the top, and, of course, the Indiana Hoosiers as well. Thanks so much for being here. He is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. Check him out again wherever you get your podcast. Same way you find Locked On Hoosiers, you can find his show. And same way you find his show, you can find Locked On Hoosiers. All right. And, hey, just by the way, Spencer, Fernando Mendoza is the Heisman betting favorite according to FanDuel.
All right. The hat is officially coming off for the day.
Oh,
We'll see if I pick Indiana in a big game later this year. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.